And good evening, everybody. Well, good afternoon, that is. Welcome to another edition of the True Blue podcast here on GShow Productions. I'm your host, Graham, the GShow Forsyth. This edition of the show is brought to you by Mid Canada Fasteners Tools, your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. Be sure to visit their store locations today in Brandon and Winnipeg. And by the way, everybody, we got a new promo going on with Mid Canada Fasteners Tools until the end of this month. Who knows, we could be running this promo in December as well. But for now, until the end of November, when you mention GShow Productions in Mid Canada Fasteners Tools stores, whether that's Brandon and Winnipeg, you'll receive a free Milwaukee tool coffee mug with any purchase until the end of this month. It's limited to one customer, of course, available in both of their store locations. Visit their website for more information about their products as well at midcanadafasteners.shop. But yeah, we're also brought to you by Terraco, serving Manitoba producers for over 80 years. Be sure to check out their website at Terraco.ca. And we're brought to you by Goaltenders, your goalie's personal video review service. Check it out at GordyTumilsonGoalies.ca. So it's finally here. The 110th Grey Cup between the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Montreal Alouettes. The game is being played at Tim Hortons Field, the second Grey Cup that's going to be held at that venue. And yeah, for the first time in CFL history, the Bombers and Alouettes are facing off against each other in the Grey Cup. This is the first matchup in the very long history of the league, which is kind of crazy to think about. I'm going to be talking about Montreal and what challenges they pose to this Bombers team later on in the episode. We're going to start off with recapping CFL Awards night as it all went down on Thursday. Going to be talking about Bombers injuries heading into this matchup, what the keys to the game for Blue and Gold is to win a third Grey Cup in 4 years, and also Winnipeg joining some history, as well as you'll have my 110th Grey Cup game predictions coming up at the end of this one. It's going to be a lot of fun, folks. The screen's going to be black for just a moment. We're going to come back and start off with talking about the awards, recapping it all here on True Blue, the official Winnipeg Blue Bombers podcast of GShow Productions, brought to you by Mid Canada Fasteners Tools, Terraco, and Goaltenders. More to come after this transition coming up. And welcome back, everybody, to the True Blue podcast. We're going to get one of our sponsors rolling down here on the screen and get into the awards that were handed out on Thursday night in the CFL. The Bombers, they were nominated for awards like MOP with Brady Oliveira, as well as Most Outstanding Canadian, which Brady Oliveira would win. The Bombers were also up for Most Outstanding Lineman with Jamarcus Hardrick getting the nomination, his first of his career. O'Shea was up for Coach of the Year. He had won it in back-to-back seasons, but it wasn't exactly the Bombers' night at awards. 5 trophies went to the Toronto Argonauts, and Ryan Dinwiddie beat out Coach O'Shea for Coach of the Year. Dijon Allen beat out Jamarcus Hardrick for Most Outstanding Lineman, and Chad Kelly beat out Brady Oliveira for Most Outstanding Player in the league. But starting off with the one win that the Bombers did have, and Brady Oliveira getting Most Outstanding Canadian, I don't really think it was even a discussion, to be honest with you. Brady Oliveira with over 2,000 all-purpose yards this season, best running back in the league by a mile. I'd say the best skill player in the league by a mile this year in the CFL, and with him being Canadian, getting this award, I think that yeah, it couldn't have gone to anyone else but Brady Oliveira this season, having the best running back season since John Cornish back in 2013. But as for Chad Kelly winning MOP, I mean, I've talked about it. It really wasn't surprising with him winning this award. Now, I think that it was close. I'm pretty sure the voting was close. And honestly, looking back at it, the more I think about it and the more I hear people talking about it, Brady Oliveira honestly should have got this award. Now, I know what I've said about Chad Kelly being the guy that delivers in the big moments when it mattered the most for the Toronto Argonauts this season. I mean, the guy only lost one game, and he was the best dual-threat QB in the CFL in terms of him running in the ball. He was one of the most efficient QBs in the league as well. And yeah, I mean, just the common thing people are talking about, and I kind of do agree with this, is that Vernon Adams Jr. and Collaros didn't even get nominated for the award. Oliveira was nominated for the award in the West, where Collaros and Vernon Adams both play in that conference. And Brady Oliveira was by far the best player in his position when Kelly wasn't exactly that. He didn't have the most passing yards or the most passing TDs. But at the end of the day, this really isn't surprising that Kelly gets it with just how successful of a season that Toronto had, how efficient he was, and, you know, the entertainment value that he did bring. But looking back at it, yeah, I do think that Oliveira, you could say that he got robbed for this award just with how dominant and how valuable he was to that Blue Bombers offense. Now, the one thing that I think where you can play devil's advocate on is, like, Chad Kelly had the best team around him, so did Brady Oliveira. Devil's advocate not being the right word. So in terms of those arguments, like, there's arguments for both of these guys for them to have success and where they thrived. But at the same time, those are where the awards go to, is those players on those teams that benefit the most from their success. And you could make an argument that, you know, for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, this team wouldn't have been the same without Brady Oliveira this year on offense. You can make the argument for Chad Kelly as well, and that being the case, I just feel like, yeah, you know, both of these players being nominated for the award, I think that for Chad Kelly winning the MOP, not surprising. Brady Oliveira could have definitely got it. But yeah, in terms of Dijon Allen beating DeMarcus Hardrick for the Most Outstanding Lineman Award, it was Hardrick's first nomination. And for Dijon Allen, like, he only gave up 2 sacks all season long on the best O-line in the CFL in terms of giving up the least sacks in the Toronto Argonauts. So this one wasn't surprising, in the very least, with him winning it. One thing to note, though, Stanley Bryant had won the award 4 out of the last 5 seasons, back-to-back winner, heading into this year. And yeah, for Ryan Dinwiddie winning Coach of the Year over O'Shea, this was kind of obvious seeing this coming. Like, Dinwiddie coaching a team that's 16-2, best team in the CFL. O'Shea had won the award back-to-back seasons beforehand, and even though they were the first place team in the West, Toronto, and even though they ended up beating Toronto, 16-2 overall, no one did it better. And yeah, it was Dinwiddie's first Coach of the Year award that he's gotten. We'll be interesting to see what happens next season for him to be able to potentially win another one, but hoping that Mike O'Shea gets back and gets nominated again for a 4th straight season and wins a 3rd Coach of the Year next year. Leave your thoughts in the comments, folks. What did you think of this year's award nominations, as well as, well, the award winners? Do you think that Brady Oliveira got robbed? Let me know in the comments down below. But talking about the Bombers' historic run this season. Now, it's not historic where it stands alone, but there are a few standalones in terms of, I believe, O'Shea. He's the first coach to coach in 4 straight Grey Cups, which is outstanding. I could be wrong on that, but I do know this for sure. Zach Collaros is the first QB to start in 4 consecutive Grey Cup games. And, you know, Winnipeg, they're within that territory now. Not quite. No one's ever going to be Edmonton until this actually happens, of winning 5 straight Grey Cups, but they'd made it to that Grey Cup game about 6 years in a row, the Bombers making it 4 years in a row. I mean, this Bombers team is doing something they've never done in franchise history this season, which is making it to 4 straight consecutive Grey Cups. Not many teams in CFL history, only a few maybe even one. I'm not too sure. I had trouble finding the history on this, but bottom line is that not many teams have done what the Bombers have done this season. And in all honesty, in my lifetime, I've never seen a team have this much success in terms of getting to so many Grey Cups in a row as the Blue Bombers have had. I was born in 2001. I've been watching the CFL for as long as I can remember. And yeah, I mean, just what's gone into this Bombers dominance is consistency year in and year out to get to this point. Once again, we've seen it time after time throughout, the years from 2019 to 2023, this defense stepping up in the big moments when it mattered the most, limiting some pretty great offenses at that. We've seen this offense continue to be reliable and productive, one of the best in the league throughout the seasons for these past 4 years, having guys like Calero staying, right? Having guys like Willie Jefferson staying, Adam Bighill, who I don't think is going to be playing in this game, even though he's listed as a game-time decision. But in terms of the guys who have stayed and the guys that the Bombers have added on, they've just found ways to be successful and consistent throughout these 4 seasons. They've found ways to keep the core together while adding on with new guys, in terms of guys like Evan Holm being such a big-time addition to the team this season, in terms of a guy like Brady Oliveira finding a level that I don't think anyone thought he would have. It's just the Bombers year in and year out continue to get help from that core as well as the new guys coming in. The culture that Mike O'Shea has built here along with this staff is second to none in the league. And you take a look at the fans and the sport that's been here throughout. It's made Winnipeg a football town again and reminded fans what's so special about this Winnipeg Blue Bombers team. If this Bombers team ends up winning a 3rd Grey Cup tonight in Montreal, and it is not going to be easy by any stretch, as much as many people I've seen saying that the Bombers should dominate this game and win it easily. It's not going to be easy, and I think for this team tonight, if they're able to pull it out, they got the stuff to do it. They've been through these situations, and they are motivated from last year where they could have been going for 4 straight Grey Cups this season if they hadn't lost against Toronto. But for this Bombers team, they're able to win 3 Grey Cups in 4 years. You got to look at them as a dynasty. And the crazy thing is, with Calero still here and, most of that core returning next season for 2024, I think that, this team could very well be in, contention for a Grey Cup again next season and maybe even make it to a 5th straight. It's just been excellence throughout these past 4 seasons, a team that's been atop of the West for the past 3 seasons, and yeah, I think if you win tonight, you have a QB that's made 4 straight Grey Cups. He'd have 3. That core would have 3 at that point in 4 seasons. You got to mark that down as a dynasty, no doubt about it. We are going to take a quick break here, and then we are going to go into the injury report for the Bombers coming into today's game, as well as the Montreal Alouettes and the challenges they pose to this Bombers team. You're watching the True Blue podcast here on GShow Productions. More to come from myself, Graham, the GShow Forsyth, after this transition. Stick with us, folks. Welcome back to this edition of the True Blue podcast here on GShow Productions, and the penultimate episode, folks. So this is the second last episode of this season. Don't worry, we'll be back next season for True Blue, as 2024 will be upon us soon. Before you know it, this podcast will be back for season 2. But it's been a lot of fun this year. Not going exactly the way I had thought. I wish I got more guests on. I know I'd promised tailgating, but yeah, the big thing for me is I didn't learn to use a barbecue. There's a lot of stuff going on. We're going to have more tailgating next year for sure. You can guarantee that. We're going to make a lot of guarantees on this episode in terms of we're going to have some great guests on for next season. It's going to be fantastic. Big names from around the Winnipeg Blue Bombers media, the CFL media. Maybe we even get some players on the show next season like Brady Oliveira or a former player and a coach in like Michael O'Shea, who's still coaching, of course, on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. There's a lot of opportunity next year for True Blue that we didn't see some of these opportunities this season, but don't worry, next year will be awesome. Already looking forward to it here on GShow Productions, your gateway to everything sports here in Manitoba. But yeah, talking about the awards as well as the historic run the Bombers have had here. I mean, 4 Grey Cup appearances in the last 4 years, so 4 straight. Having a chance to win a 3rd Grey Cup in 4 years could very well become a dynasty after this night. Looking to bounce back from last year's Grey Cup where there was total disappointment for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But this year, it's looking to be a game where the Winnipeg Blue Bombers should be favored handily. Should be favored heavily against the Montreal Alouettes team to maybe some, but after the Toronto Argonauts fell to the Montreal Alouettes last week in a stunner, I believe 38-17, this Montreal Alouettes team, put, I think, the rest of the CFL, anyone who wasn't paying attention, on notice. 9 turnovers against the Argos last week, 2 of them pick sixes, a strip sack against Kelly Lewin. He committed 5 of those turnovers, and you could see that defense just created that momentum, and that team really did ride off of it. We'll take a look at the defensive stats. Just taking a look at this as to show you guys, Montreal has been doing this all season long to teams in terms of their stellar defense coming to play. Only 21.8 points allowed per game, second least in the league next to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. You take a look at the yards they gave up, 3rd least in the league. The only teams who did it better is the BC Lions and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Take a look at the rest of the defensive stats against the pass. Montreal, the second best pass defense in the league this season, second to only the Blue Bombers. And this was a team that when you do pass against them, they don't give up that much, as only 7.6 against in terms of passing yards on plays. So for this Montreal Alouettes team, the defense is for real. They got some real game changers there. I mean, adding Sean Lemon in has improved that defense even more so and added more of that veteran presence into that and obviously some legendary skill as he does possess. But this team this season didn't get to the QB the most, but one thing that they could do was force turnovers. And we saw that last week against the Toronto Argonauts, how it came to play. Now, for the offense last week, all they had to do was really take care of the football. And, they only turned the ball over once in that game, I believe, Fajardo throwing an interception. But for the most part, he played the role of a game manager really well. This team got some long, sustained drives throughout that game to really seal things. And if we take a look at the offense, like for Montreal, it hasn't been pretty all season long. They're not the most high-powered offense like we saw last week. It wasn't that got them the win. It was their defense. But their offense just took care of the football enough, did the right things enough times to be able to get them a win in terms of sustaining drives and stuff like that. But if we take a look at points for Montreal, a top 4 team in that regard in the league. In terms of their yards, they don't put up a lot of them per game if we're taking a look at trends this season in terms of their 6 most yards per game average. And we also look at them in terms of, that would be running the ball. Montreal is 5th in that category. Passing the ball, they're 6th. And their average gain per pass ranking 4th in the league. So for the Montreal Alouettes, not a spectacular offense, but guys that can hurt you. Cody Fajardo has been really good for this team for most of this season. He hasn't hurt them that much. He's done the things necessary to, give this team success as well as he can. You take a look at a guy like William Stanback, who's a true power back in the league, who may be a bit forgotten about to this point in the season, being overshadowed by other power backs in the league like Brady Oliveira, who he's really, been the guy that's kind of stolen the show from every single RB this season. But yeah, just taking a look through Montreal's receivers, right, in terms of who stepped up for them huge in last week's win. It was guys like Tyson Philpott, who, a guy from Canada up for most outstanding Canadian, so that's pretty cool. The two guys nominated for that award going at it in this game. Of course, award winner Brady Oliveira looking to show out, but yeah, they also got guys like Austin Mack, Philpott, guys that can hurt you, if you're not careful still on the defensive side of the ball. So this Montreal team, I think they're going to be looking to build off of any energy they can in this game today. They're going to look to come out fast and with a lot of energy and look for that offense to continue to do the same game managing things as they've done all season long. Look to, score points on long drives. This Bombers team has to be ready for it today. Their preparation has to be at the top of their game heading into this matchup, because we've seen this in the past where, Calgary, for example, losing back-to-back years in a row to the Ottawa Red Blacks and the Toronto Argonauts, who had under 500 records in the Grey Cup. The thing about this Montreal Alouettes team is they're 11-7. Yes, they haven't beaten the best team. They've struggled against more of the top teams, but it doesn't matter at this point. They're a hot team coming in, playing with a lot of character, with a lot of energy, with a great defense and an offense that has, proven they can get the job done down the stretch, even though it hasn't been the prettiest of ways that they've done it. So, yeah, Bombers today, they'll have to be on the top of their game. They'll have to come out strong, I think, to give themselves the best chance in this game. Two of the best defenses in the league going at it. And speaking of, for the Bombers game day lineup, as you can see here, these are pretty much what are going to be the starting players on the field. We look at the depth too. Big Hill and Schoen listed as game time decisions, but I have a feeling neither of those guys play in this game, as they've sustained some pretty serious injuries, and CFL.com also has them listed as doubtful from this week of practice. So other than that, the Bombers looking like they have their full unit ready and set to go, the team being led by Caleros and Oliveira, of course, highlighting this roster. Kenny Lawler looking to show out big time as well, hopefully for the Bombers, as he did last week in some big-time situations against the BC Lions. We are going to take one last quick transition here. Well, not a quick transition, but a transition on this edition of the True Blue Podcast. You're not going to want to miss what's coming up next. I'm going to be talking about the keys to the game for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and giving my 110th Grey Cup predictions here on GShow Productions on True Blue, Episode 8, and the penultimate episode brought to you for this season. The penultimate episode, that is, brought to you by Terraco, Mid Canada Fasteners Tools, and Goaltenders. We'll be back in just a moment here, folks. All right, welcome back to this edition of the True Blue Podcast, presented by Mid Canada Fasteners Tools, Terraco, as well as Goaltenders. As we get into the final part of this episode, I want to thank everyone who is tuning into this one for tuning in. It's been a lot of fun. Up until this point, I know we weren't doing these episodes as frequently as we would have planned, but stuff happens in life. Something that I'm still going through right now, honestly, that's been affecting things, but hey, we'll get through it here, and I just hope that you guys are enjoying this one up until this point, because I'm having a lot of fun. Hope you're having fun watching it too. Talking about the Winnipeg Blue Bombers taking on the Montreal Alouettes. These two teams facing off against each other in the Grey Cup for the first time in CFL history. Can you believe that? That is crazy. What also is crazy is that Zach Collaros and Cody Fajardo used to play on the same team together back in 2019 before, stuff happened in Saskatchewan. Collaros went down with a concussion. They end up trading him later down in the season. These two meet in the West Final, and Collaros and the Bombers get the better of that Saskatchewan Roughriders team in the season where Riders fans had high hopes, thinking it would be the one. They were the number one team in the West, and Fajardo got the MOP nomination. Just had to clear my throat there for a sec. But now fast forward to 2023 in a game where, honestly, so many CFL fans, including myself, thought it would be Toronto and Winnipeg in a rematch. It's now Cody Fajardo and his Montreal Alouettes going up against Zach Collaros and his Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And Collaros, he's had his struggles in the past against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I believe I saw a stat, he's 2 for 10 against the Bombers in his career. He knows this team and what they can do to him very well. It's been documented throughout his career where the Bombers get a bunch of pressure on him and make his life miserable, and that is something that the Bombers are looking to do today in terms of winning at the line of scrimmage, that being a big key to the game. Getting pressure on Cody Fajardo, a guy that gets the ball out on an average of 1.2 to 1.9 seconds this season. Let's have some water here. One sec, folks. Throat is all of a sudden sounding super sick. But my point being that Fajardo gets the ball out on average something like 1.2 to 1.9 seconds per throw this year, and that was documented in that game against the Toronto Argonauts, where a lot of his gains, his completions to receivers were for short yardage routes and stuff like that, right? Now, Fajardo, he'll still take the shots downfield, but overall this is going to be more of an offense that's going to look to manage the football and look to, sustain drives on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, I feel like. And what the Bombers need to be good at in this game and limiting that is being good in tackling, right? If you're having trouble getting to Fajardo with him getting the ball out quick, fine, but your tackling has to be good. You have to be in their hip pocket and, not let them break through for yards after carry to have success in this game. I think a guy like Willie Jefferson is going to be big time for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in this matchup. He was last week, bringing all the energy he did. I mean, it's going to be interesting because their commander-in-chief, or not commander-in-chief, but their commander out there on the defense in Big Hill is a game-time decision, and honestly, I don't think he ends up playing. If he does, great, but Clements, he's going to have to step up in this game as well, calling things out. Maybe someone else is going to take the reins and be the leader and commander on this defense for the Bombers, but whatever it is, this team has to be good in tackling because that ball is going to get thrown out quickly out of Fajardo's hands, and guys like Willie Jefferson and Jackson Jeffcoat, I think, have to have huge games disrupting at the line for this Bombers team to get in Fajardo's head, and then after that, I think that the Bombers could start to potentially pile on sacks as Fajardo could start to get nervous and the wheels start to turn in his head. But the big reason why Montreal is into this game, into the 110th Grey Cup, is that defense. As mentioned, 9 turnovers forced last week against the Toronto Argonauts, who were the best team in the CFL, 16-2 this season. They protected the ball well all season long. It wasn't the case in Montreal last week. Now, taking a look at that Montreal team got some good pressure on Chad Kelly, but there were some uncharacteristic, unforced turnovers that were made in that game, especially on that first first interception, pick six of about 110 yards to get things going for Montreal. This is a team that has forced the second most turnovers in the league at 48. They did wonders against Chad Kelly last week. They made his life a nightmare as he turned over the ball about 5 times, strip sack, the 2 pick sixes. For the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in this game today, for their offense, you need to protect the ball against this Montreal defense because they're going to feed off that energy and you're going to make your defense more tired than it has to be. The Bombers did a pretty good job of protecting the football last week against the BC Lions, and we know what this Bombers team is capable of, but there have been times this season where they have shot themselves in the foot with some turnovers. So I think for Winnipeg tonight, it's going to be crucial for them to not only feed Oliveira again the football, but also to not take risks with the football, because honestly, on paper, comparing these two teams, the Bombers have a better defense objectively and a better offense objectively. So if you're able to not turn over the football as much and capitalize more times on offense with how you are on paper, this should bode well for the Bombers if they protect the ball. You can't turn the ball over 9 times like Toronto did. You just can't. No football team is going to win that way, and for the Bombers, they're going to have to be on the top of their game in terms of executing in that way, because Montreal is going to be looking to find energy and build off of that again with their turnovers, and that's my next point. You can't let this Montreal team find energy in this game. They built off of that with the confidence from their defense last week, and Toronto couldn't respond emotionally. This Bombers team has been in so many situations where they've been down, they've been up, they've blown teams out, they've won in close games. I think what's going to be huge for them is to trust in the history they've had together of being in so many of these big moments, to rise above it if a turnover does happen. You can't get down on yourself. You can't get frustrated, because then you'll have to play catch up. And the Bombers, like many teams, but especially the Bombers, play way better from ahead because they can control the game at such a high level and rely on their defense to make the stops when they have to. And a huge part of the Bombers' success in terms of not letting Montreal find energy is winning at the line of scrimmage. Break open holes for Oliveira on offense. Keep that pocket clean for Zach Collaros. He is the best QB in the league when he has a clean pocket, and he's had so much time to throw this season. That needs to translate into today. Now, Montreal is going to get pressure on you, but they had no sacks last week. So for the Bombers, if the pressure is coming and you can't protect Zach as much, if Montreal brings some different things on the pass rush to try to get creative and get more pressure, that ball has to be out quick. You need to trust Brady Oliveira, but I think that if the Bombers can establish the line of scrimmage early on and you run the ball, get physical, that should set momentum in their favor for this game, and it should bode well for them. So the 110th Grey Cup, my predictions for this game: the Bombers have blown out Montreal before. They're the best team in the West this season. They got the best record left standing. They got the most valuable Canadian, most outstanding, that is, in Brady Oliveira, and a back who could have and should have probably won the MOP award. They have a top-end defense. Still, you could say the top QB in the league in Zach Collaros. They have all these things, right? They have made it to a 4th straight Grey Cup, finding redemption, trying to, from last season's disappointment of being denied 3 in a row. But as well as it's gone for the Bombers up until this point, the Montreal Alouettes, I think, are going to have something to say about it. This is a team that is going to fight throughout this game. They're going to work for every single play, and even though the Bombers blew them out and beat them this season and shut down that offense, that was long ago, and the regular season a lot different than the playoffs from what we've seen in our history, of course. Watching sports, it's only one game. Anything can happen, and preparation is going to be huge in this one for either team. But still, I think that the Bombers aren't taking this Montreal Alouettes team lightly. This is a team with so many players, even though they got some new ones on this year's roster. A lot of that group lost to Toronto and suffered that heartbreak. They get another crack to do it this season. This is a team that has looked really great down the stretch. in the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Zach Collaros protected the football at a high level last week. I expect him to do the same again. I think that the Bombers, the only way that they lose this game is if they beat themselves, as we've seen this season, because when this team executes at its highest level, not many, if any, team can stay with them. I think that Montreal is going to have a chance in this game with that defense, but like I said, offensively, I just think the Bombers have too much. Even with Dalton shown out, you look at Kenny Lawler and the pieces the Bombers still have around Zach Collaros and Brady Oliveira. I expect for the Bombers to establish the game, the run game in this one, establish momentum. Defense comes through huge, and I got the Bombers winning this one by 2 scores, winning 31-16 tonight in Hamilton to claim their third Grey Cup in 4 years. Should be a lot of fun, everybody. Can't wait to watch the game. It should be fantastic. Green Day's performance, I think, is going to be fantastic. I'm excited for that. And also let me know what y'all are having for Grey Cup Sunday in terms of the meal. Are you having some chili like we are here at the Forsyth household? And maybe you're having some pizza or something else. Let me know. But yeah, that's going to do it for this edition of the True Blue Podcast. We are going to throw it to the transition and be back with one last thing to talk about, some final words here on this edition of the show. Well, you made it to the end of this edition of the True Blue Podcast. I've been your host, Graham, the GShow Forsyth. The 110th Grey Cup, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm hoping that Green Day plays a lot of great songs. Hopefully they play some new stuff that's good too. Give a good mix. I can't wait to watch it with my family. It's going to be a lot of fun. Winnipeg looking for their third Grey Cup in 4 years tonight. Montreal trying to deny that first matchup between these two in the big game for the first time in 110 years. So it's going to be exciting. The True Blue Podcast for episode 9. We're either going to drop that tomorrow, probably on Friday night though. So stay tuned for that as we'll recap the Bombers season, look ahead to next year. And should be a lot of fun. Might have some guests on that one. But yeah, that's going to do it for this edition of the show, everybody. Enjoy the big game. I'll be watching. I hope you guys will be too. I've been your host, Graham, the GShow Forsyth, giving you the salute, peacing out, saying so long. Thanks to Mid Canada Fasteners and Tools, Terraco, and Goaltenders for sponsoring this one. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. Have a wonderful football day, Canadian football fans, and happy Grey Cup Sunday, everybody. Take care.